So that happens. I think the biggest frustration people have is, I think it's really on the claim side a lot of times, because these business owners, look, if somebody gets legitimately hurt, they want the person taken care of.
Right.
No matter, I want the best doctors. But if they believe somebody is exaggerating what happened, talk about expensive. And I'm not talking about the expense of that injured worker and what that costs. Expensive for an owner that has to think about this all the time, that trying to fix it takes his time away from his core business, right? And he's now, and it's always something.
It's like getting hit with a hurricane, because you're just minding your own business. You're just trying to trying to do
Live
your job,
life, right? Yeah.
And then someone comes in. Basically, it's criminal activity. I don't know how they fight this if it could go criminal.
Yeah.
But if you're committing fraud on the workplace,
so that, I will tell you, because
will you go to jail for that?
I get
never, right? They never
probably
go to jail.
never. You know what?
In fact, what I hear is that they get paid some type of nuisance claim.
That's right. That's
to
exactly
get them
what
away.
happens.
But this is the wrong strategy, because it attracts more of those types of people.
So what happens is the carriers look at this. Virgil said he hurt his back, right? At work, and he's riding bulls at the Okeechobee Rodeo, and you send surveillance in, and you see Virgil riding bulls, right? And he said he hurt his back. That's not enough for a carrier to deny the claim.
Yeah.
Because here's what happens. So now he's lawyered up, right? And the lawyer will say, well, you know what? He shouldn't have been doing it. He's got good days and bad days. And they look at, the carrier does, they look at the defense cost. What's it going to cost to take this thing? And they tell the business owner, nobody's happy with it, I will tell you. Everybody says.
Except the lawyers, they're pretty happy.
They're all happy, yep. But a lot of times, see, there's a strategy inside of this. And the strategy is, when we take a different approach at our company, and I'll give you the insurance company and their adjuster's strategy when somebody gets hurt. They look at, here's the profile. We got a 60-year-old guy that hurt his back, or 65, he'll probably never be back to work. They look at that. So they say, this is what we paid already, send them to the doctor, and we expect to pay, let's say, another $50,000 or $100,000, right? Because if he can't come back to work, it's going to be a lot more money, right? So he's going to be permanently, totally disabled. And if you take a 21-year-old and he hurts his back, that's going to be less. He's going to rehab faster, right? That's kind of the idea. We take a whole different approach in our office. So when one of our clients calls us and says, Lori, we just had this injury. So Lori will say, tell me about it. So we look at the characteristics of the individual, not the injury. So you got a 60-year-old guy that hurt his back. So then that's the question. Tell us about him. He hasn't missed a day of work in 30 years. Never, always on time. This guy is, he's coming back.
Right.
The 20-year-old guy, here's usually their response. We're just getting ready to fire him. Smoke breaks all the time. And you look at that whole characteristic of that. Now, strategy comes in.
So he was on a ladder. He was vaping. He got lost in the cloud. Missed one of the rungs.
And that's what happens.
Came down. And now,
who knows if he even fell?
He's not going on unemployment. He's going on
workers' comp.
Workers' comp.
Because they get paid 66 2/3 of what they were making. No taxes.
Wow.
So then you start taking deeper dive. Oh, the guy's, married, got a new baby, or, they got daycare. Oh, no, he can
now he sounds like a hero.
No. Now he's going to stay home and watch the kid.
If you said he had 3 baby mamas and he was on his way,
I was going to do that,
but if this guy's actually got a family, he's trying to, and he needed to hurt himself to save his family, that's a hero, dude.
But I know, but typically that's not the guy.
Okay.
So we go to the characteristics. We take it the other way. So now the strategy is go back to. So this is Virgil. We know Virgil is riding bulls, so we got to get surveillance on Virgil quickly.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot, but. It's the stuff that, look.
And then someone's got to pay the guy who's filming the guy in the bull.
Well, yeah, but here's the deal. Now, in which most carriers don't do.
We should do a show to catch a
fraudulent work comp claim. That's funny.
It's not a predator. To catch a.
Yeah.
Corolla had one to catch an unlicensed contractor in California,
Yeah,
but this is different. You're trying to catch someone who's committing fraud, to catch a fraudster.
So now I'm kind of
Let's do this.
let's
Okay.
we'll go on that. So I'm going to regress a little bit, digress, whatever it is. No, regress is go without, digress is going back. So it's so now we know. So now you get surveillance there. So this is where the negotiation comes in. So now you let his attorney, look, we got him on video. We're going to offer you $5,000 to settle this right now. So that's
pay him off, even though he's cheating.
We already, yeah, but so
with no consequence.
We want to get rid of it.
I mean, get the stab at one of his tires on his Denali, nothing like that.
Yeah. So it is that.
And take this to go, pal.
Look, there.
And $5,000.
I deal with all of these WorkComp carriers, and when people say put me with a carrier, that they don't do that, Duke. There's no such thing. These guys measure it. They've got all the statistics anyway. When we tried to fight something, because sometimes if you're a big enough insured, you can talk to the VP of claims and go, you're not paying this.
I don't understand how you all stay in business.
Why?
Because all the money being paid out to fraud, even when it's found out that it's fraud, usually in a court case, for example, if someone loses, right, and they brought a court case that now it's been proven that should have never been brought. I forgot what they call those.
Yeah, I don't either.
They have to pay for both sides.
Yeah, they
of
pay
the attorney.
attorney's fees, right?
But now you find that this guy does not commit fraud, and he still gets a gift.
Carmen,
Can't you offer him less? Like this $5,000 seems a lot. Like here's $20.
No,
It seems even like too much still. You pay us $500 and we won't put you under deposition and try to bring you to criminal court.
So so I'm going to go back to judges and mediators on claims. This has been several years ago. We had an RN working for us, a nurse. So she was kind of getting involved in these claims. Literally, we know this is a bad claim. So they have the mediation. It's on the 6th floor of the Bank of Central Florida. That's where it is. So the carrier's attorneys are up there. Nikki's up there. The guy's walking in. This is true story, on crutches. They mediate this thing out, right? They come to a settlement. Defense lawyer for the carrier and the plaintiff's attorney. Now, Nikki is sitting there talking to the judge, and they're looking out the window downstairs. The guy is walking outside, and he's got the crutches over his shoulder, and he's walking.
Wow. Bold.
And so Nikki says, Judge, he goes, case is over.
Wow. But that's so hard to get the judge for every one of these fraud guys.
These
Look, Judge, I want to bring you around with me for a while.
It is.
You just happen to see that.
So
it just seems to me, where's this? This money's coming from the consumer, right? Or the contractor, or the boss, or whoever's
it's coming
paying
from the WorkComp rates.
Who's
right?
ever paying.
Right. So, and we go through cycles of this stuff too, right? So we've been going through cycles, but the good news is WorkComp rates have rolled back like 70% in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But that's because frequency of claims are down. There's a lot of things that are happening.
Didn't they cut the lawyers out too a little bit?
They did, but they brought them back in 2017.
So they're still getting 33 and a third?
No. But they're not double dipping. So back before that.
They were double dipping before that?
Oh, yes. They were getting a percentage. And sometimes they'd walk away with more money than the injured person did. So they were,
So I always talk people out of being lawyers.
No.
You know, my father was a lawyer.
Yeah.
Right. And then he wanted me to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to be a lawyer.
Right.
Because I saw what happens. What happens is, and I guess it happens with a lot of people.
Right.
You know, I talk about this on my own podcast, is that if you get sucked into that corporate world at all, like you've avoided it in some ways, you're still pretty loose and almost don't care.
Right.
But that's the old school, right? The new school guys today are so worried about what they say. They don't want to lose a job and then their reputation. And also it has to do with self-employed and non-self-employed.
Yeah.
But this lawyer thing really makes people into stiffs. And I see why now.
Well,
it's the double dipping. I got to have it.
You got to have, you go back to this. So
how does a comic get the double dip?
Here's the thing. When you say that, Duke, you're different.
I booked a show and I perform. I got to figure this out.
They're paying me and I'm getting something at the door, right? I got them going both ways. But I've been fired from...
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, speakers bureaus, like we were talking about, if you do get paid, do it. They'll take money from you, a fee from you, and they'll take a fee from the other side that you're getting booked at.
Okay.
So it's not just lawyers.
It is. So when you talk about, I'm a little.
Now, if you're a speakers bureau and you're listening to this, I was kidding.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to get gigs. Do you see that?
Yeah,
I
see,
expose
he's
the industry.
yeah.
What an idiot. Why do I have to,
I know you just
I'm
dug
dumb.
the hole and
I'm
you
so
jumped
dumb.
in it.
See, because I don't have that corporate training.
Right.
Damn it.